Madame la Présidente,
President, first of all, congratulations on your election yesterday. Secretary General, thank you for this morning's very satisfactory meeting. Members of Parliament, it is an honour for me to be here in Strasbourg, a European capital, and it is an honour for me to address you, honourable members of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. For this venerable European institution, which was established in the aftermath of the Second World War, symbolises more than any other institution the reconciliation between peoples on our continent, peoples who, for too long, tore each other apart in history. But above all, this institution illustrates the advantages that our nations can derive from cooperation based on shared and fundamental values such as freedom, democracy, human rights and the rule of law. These are values to which my country has long aspired, and the advent of which, following the fall of the Berlin Wall, was for Croatia a synonym of our regained independence in 1991, and it marked our return into the large European family of democratic nations. Sadly, the first years of our independence were marred by war. Today, this war is far behind us, but the tragic experience of it has helped us to better grasp the full importance of peace and the values defended by the Council of Europe. That is why today I would like to pay tribute to the founders of this pan-European organisation. I would like to commend them for the pioneering role this organisation has played since 1949 in building Europe, whilst our continent still lay in ruins. But I would also like to commend you all of you who through your work continue to make Europe a reference in terms of democracy and human rights. It is Europe that continues to embody and inspire hope for many men and women around the world whose fundamental rights are trampled all over. Because that is what the Council of Europe stands for, and I would like to thank you for it. That said, we, Member States of the Council of Europe, must all ensure that the standards that we share are implemented unequivocally and everywhere within our states, at the local, regional, national and international levels. As you are aware, Croatia took up the chairmanship of the Committee of Ministers last May, on the 18th of May. This is the first time that we hold the chairmanship since joining the Council of Europe in 1996. But before joining the Council of Europe family, Croatia had to meet a long list of commitments and obligations. These led to a far-reaching transformation of our society and largely contributed to strengthening democratic standards in my country for the great benefit of all of our citizens. Today, the image and position held by Croatia reflects progress accomplished in terms of entrenching democratic values within our society. It also reflects the results obtained through our tireless efforts aimed at solving a number of specific issues. Croatia is not happy with simply implementing principles at the national level. No, we promote them actively at the European level. Yesterday you heard what our 4 priorities would be for the chairmanship: the fight against corruption, the protection of minorities, decentralization and also the promotion of cultural heritage. But the Council of Europe today is more important than ever before, for through its activities, the Council of Europe contributes to implement the many standards that it shares with the European Union. Through its active participation in the Council of Europe's activities, Croatia has been a living example of the Council's transformative power, especially in light of the efforts made on our path to joining the European Union. I would like to reiterate Croatia's full support for and commitment to the work of the Council of Europe. Its unique role of protecting and promoting the highest European values, democracy, human rights and rule of law, must not be compromised under any circumstances. And that is where our primary responsibility of member states lies. We must uphold the fundamental principles of the Council of Europe in order to preserve the reputation of our organization. Croatia is all the more committed to these principles and democratic values, for my fellow citizens had to pay a heavy price in order to defend them. Our organization is currently facing major challenges, and against this backdrop, Croatia fully supports the need to reform the Council of Europe and to define a clear and long-term strategy and outlook. It is extremely important to achieve greater unity by better marrying our efforts aimed at regaining our citizens' trust in our work. The Council of Europe has established an effective monitoring mechanism for human rights standards, democracy and the rule of law. Such monitoring is of the essence if we are to pinpoint the areas in which there is non-compliance and in order to address recommendations to member states. Therefore, it is of the utmost importance that we preserve the activities of monitoring mechanisms. Furthermore, interaction and synergies can be improved between the main bodies of the Council of Europe, and I believe that member states are duty-bound to work more actively with the Secretariat and with the Parliamentary Assembly in order to make the work of the Council of Europe more effective.
The Human Rights Convention system presents one of the most significant mechanisms which made tremendous contribution to the protection and promotion of human rights and the rule of law in Europe. We express our deep commitment to the Convention and the obligations under it, as well as to the right to individual application to the Court as a key feature of the system. Full national implementation of the European Convention on Human Rights is a prerequisite for strengthening the Human Rights Court's subsidiary role. We, as the states parties to the European Convention, have agreed to abide by the Court's judgments. Moreover, judgments being binding and executed is pivotal for the credibility of the organization. I strongly believe that there is no other way to reinforce our judicial system's efficiency. We need to work jointly to ensure that we have a shared understanding of the law and its implementation. A constructive and continuous dialogue among states and between the national and European level should exist, respecting the independence of the Court and the binding character of its judgments. The reform process has led to the significant developments and improvements of the Convention system. Croatia welcomes progress made so far and recognizes the need for further reforms. Strengthening the authority of the Court, its case law and its judges are central challenges ahead of us. I would like to express my satisfaction that the state parties express their commitment to undertake efforts towards setting up the system and addressing Convention violations promptly and effectively. Regarding the issue of the caseload as one of the major challenges posed to the Convention system, I believe that it is of crucial importance to create and take measures aiming at reducing the backlog. This could be done through development and improvement of the Court's working methods. cooperation of all the actors involved, and securing sufficient funds. It is of utmost importance that all member states meet their obligations as members of the organisation, including the financial obligations. It is our right and duty to respond appropriately to the cases of non-compliance. In any other way, the organisation loses credibility and public trust, which stands for its principles. Croatia welcomes that the Parliamentary Assembly is seeking to restore its own credibility and that it has taken concrete actions to establish an environment of zero tolerance for corruption of any practice. Corruption is a socially unacceptable phenomenon which directly jeopardizes human rights, destroys morals, and endangers the stability and economic achievement of the state. And in this case, the credibility of the Parliamentary Assembly and the Council of Europe in general. Therefore, it is necessary to build awareness of the need to continuously monitor the efficiency of specific solutions. Fight against corruption is strongly supported by Croatia as a fundamental prerequisite for the development of an open, democratic and advancing society. This is why we decided to address this negative phenomenon and define the fight against corruption as one of our key priorities of the chairmanship of the Committee of Ministers. In cooperation with the Group of States Against Corruption, GRECO, we will, in this respect, organise a ministerial conference called Strengthening Transparency and Responsibility, aimed at prevention of corruption, which will be held in Croatia in October. The aim of the conference is to highlight the importance of better cooperation and combined effort between relevant national anti-corruption bodies in the fight against it and this especially widespread anomaly. Let me share with you a few words on the experience of the recent exercise of the ratification by the Croatian Parliament of the Council of Europe's Convention on Preventing and Combating Violence Against Women and Domestic Violence, convention also called as the Istanbul Convention. We have recently ratified this convention in the Croatian Parliament and thus joined the group of 30 countries that have already acceded to this important international instrument aimed at combating and preventing violence against women and domestic violence. The lessons that we have learned is that this noble convention, with its important goals for the safety of women, for the safety of children, has been put in the context of a wider ideological debate that completely derails the public debate on the issue on the level of the member states. Croatia has endured and persevered in ratifying this convention, especially under the leadership of my government. We have done it in full conviction that we are doing a good thing for our society and also a good thing for the protection of women against violence. However, thank you. However, I think that the entire organisation should find a common solution how to clarify what the convention is about, because it is neither useful for the organisation nor for the noble goals of the convention that we have an amalgam of the debate which is contributing to the division in the societies and then puts the focus and the spotlight to issues which are unrelated with the substance. So therefore, my appeal to you, President, and also to the Secretary General, and also to my colleagues who will lead the Committee of Ministers, to use this experience which we have undergone recently as a model how not only draft a solid interpretative statement, but also how to clarify as an organisation the actual objectives of the Convention. This is something that I will gladly share with all of those who are planning to embark on the exercise of ratification. Let me say a few words also about the countries who are neighboring Croatia, our friends from Southeast Europe. Many of you present here representing your parliaments. We are, as it was clearly said by Madame Pasquier, the recent and the most latest member of the European Union, the one with a still very much fresh experience of the EU accession. We would like to use also in the fora of the Council of Europe the opportunity to support our neighbours in their reform processes and efforts, and therefore we have of course welcomed the recent European Commission's report on the countries of the Western Balkans. We have very much supported the Bulgarian presidency of the Council for organising the summit of the EU Western Balkans countries in Sofia in May. I committed to reorganise a Zagreb summit that took place now 18 years ago, back in 2000, and opened the European perspective for the entire Southeast European countries again in 2020 during our presidency of the EU Council. We will do that with the conviction that we should have a periodic summits at the highest level so as to keep the issue of the enlargement and these countries on the agenda of the European leaders. We welcome the recent agreement between our friends in Skopje and in Athens on the name issue regarding Macedonia. We hope this will certainly benefit our friends to open negotiations for the EU accession, as well as encourage the NATO members for the invitation to NATO, because this is something that has been, in our view, long overdue and deserved. We will put a particular focus on Bosnia and Herzegovina, who I think deserves the attention of the entire international community, given its history and given the responsibility of all of us to support the country's European reform agenda because of the cohesiveness of the nature of the European integration process and a generator of prosperity and the reform. From that point of view, we expect a progress also after the October elections. We will do a similar type of stance vis-à-vis all the other countries in the region in good faith and in good neighbourly approach. I would also like to use this opportunity to greet my friends from Ukraine, a country that I have had close to my heart as a former member of the European Parliament, and we will support your territorial integrity and your efforts in the European-oriented reforms, and therefore I very much welcome the conference which will take place tomorrow in Denmark in order to support your efforts. A few words on a critical issue of the European continent today, and that is the issue of illegal migrations. We all know how much the big migratory and refugee crisis impacted the European politics, the national politics in our member states, the crisis that took place in 2015 and 16 from various routes, whether it's Western Mediterranean, Central Mediterranean or Eastern Mediterranean. This is an item that will remain with us politically for many years to come, given the demographic trends that the countries of Africa are facing, that the countries of Middle East and further are facing, given the poverty, instability, wars and other issues that are leading large parts of the population to flee from their homes and look for a better future, many of them in the countries of Europe. This item is something that we all need to look at jointly, because only a European solution will bring a positive result, where we could adequately share the burden of responsibility and solidarity, but at the same time be persistent in forging partnership with non-European countries and trying to assist them in alleviating the pressure and solving the problem outside of the borders of the European home. Another item is, of course, to protect the external borders. For my country, who has two immediate European objectives. One is to join the Schengen zone, which we are fulfilling the criteria on a daily basis. The other one is to join the Eurozone. We would like to have a non-porous and well-respected external borders of the European Union and find a common solution for the various legislative acts regarding the internal issues of migration through the revision of the Dublin regulation. Of course, this process has led to the ramifications on the national level, leading to rise of populism, leading to criticism of the European project and the construction that has been carefully built over the last 70 years. I think we should all learn the lessons, find the strength and devise the right policies that are supported by our nations, our people and our citizens, so as to regain the confidence into the ability of the European institutions to deliver solutions and not to fall into traps of populism, simplicity and the change of tone and the rhetorics that was clearly visible over the last 3 years. Mesdames et messieurs, en conclusion,
ladies and gentlemen, to wrap up, I would like to tell you that the Council of Europe has, for Croatia, since the mid of the 1990s, played a key role in helping us along to achieve European integration. I also hope that we will be able to do the same with other countries and help them along this way, because just like for Croatia, European integration is the best possible incentive for the implementation of economic and political reforms. And these are synonymous with accelerated development and political stability, which are preconditions for prosperity. But the first condition necessary for achieving all this is a strengthening of democratic values, the rule of law and human rights, areas in which the Council of Europe is invaluable. I would also like to take this opportunity to ensure you all of Croatia's full support for the Parliamentary Assembly's work, both now and in the future, and more specifically, I would like to say that we support the Council of Europe's work in general. The Croatian Parliament had the opportunity to host some of you during the session of the permanent commissions, and there will be a conference dedicated to security in the Mediterranean. It will take place in Dubrovnik later this year, and that will be an opportunity for many of you to become better acquainted with my country and to see how firmly Croatia stands behind the values and goals of this organization, which is the most mature and the most venerable one involved in European construction. Thank you for your attention.